We are live. Hello, Instagram. I am just waiting for this to queue up.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm so lame and unprofessional. I forgot to say reading, and I'm trying to bring it up on the computer right now. This is Writers Uncut, and we are unscripted and unedited. So yeah, but I figure we're literally the only two people on here to edit this out if we're
we're good.
A podcast. I don't know. Are we gonna do that? Okay. Are we gonna do a podcast? Do you think? Oh, that's
Yeah.
So officially, welcome to Writers Uncut. This is a weekly chat held on Instagram Live with authors Cheyenne Young and myself, Deirdre Reardon Hall. We discuss all things writing, publishing, and welcome your questions in the comment box on the live video, or you can send them to us online, and we'll answer them in a future episode. As writers, we do a lot of editing, and because of that, this show is uncut, unfiltered, and unedited to share the real story of what it's like being in this industry. So there we
go. Welcome.
Yes. So we don't have a subject for today. So if anyone has questions,
we're gonna wing it. I do have a great question from Matt that he sent in.
Good.
So, but before that, real quick, do we want to do a personal update?
Yeah, that'd be great. Can I go first?
So, I have to go first.
Okay.
I am about. Actually, I could look it up right now. I'm 30,000 words into my new manuscript that I was very excited about on previous episodes. I'm officially in the hating everything I write phase, so that's fun. But I'm still working on it, so, this happens. And, so I'm still writing, I'm still working, and I'm going to get this draft done, and then we're going to see if I still hate it afterwards. Hopefully I don't. So that's where I'm at. What's your update?
My update is I forgot that my family is going away for the weekend coming up, and so I thought I had Friday to also work and stuff. So I'm cramming everything into the short 4-day week. So that means for my pen name, I finished yesterday writing the last book in one of the series that I'm working on, and now I usually do like a quick first raw reread, and I just make sure basically everything makes sense before I then I'll set it aside for a few days or a week, and then I go back and really make sure that I've the editing and the more intricate stuff that I want to work on, but the first pass is like the big picture items, and I'll be doing that today. But this book is coming out in June, so kind of this week is a little bit of a snapshot of what's to come for me, because I'm trying to get a lot done so I have a little bit of a summer. For those of us writers who do this full time, it really is a job that needs your attention at all times. And so I'm trying to kind of what's the right word? Is it backload as much as I can into this time until my kids are out of school, and then I have a little bit more freedom for the summer months. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to be working, but it just means I'll not have to, kind of sit down every day at 9 and grind. So that's kind of the next few weeks or month or so, are 2 months. I don't know. I forgot. I had the count, lost count. It's 7-8 weeks until they're done, sometime in June. And so I'm just pushing to get as much done and organized and kind of create systems for myself and things like that. A little glimpse behind the curtain.
Well, you also live in California, so I imagine your summers are very fun. My summers here in Texas, it's 105 degrees every day, and it's humid and gross. So If anything, I'm trying to spend more time outside right now during the spring. And then in the summer months, it's like, okay, don't leave the house, stand in front of the air conditioner, you know. But yeah, it is really great. And that's one of the cool things about being a full-time writer is we can plan our schedules around our lives. And there are some seasons where you work extra, extra hard so that you can take some time off. And then there are some seasons where you just kind of are grinding every single day, just writing every single day. I have a couple events planned this summer, but like writing events. But yeah, I don't really take the summers off. If anything, I feel like I get to work harder because my kid doesn't go to school, which means she just sleeps all day. So I don't have to wake up early and get her to school or anything. I could just wake up and write. So anyway, I do. Hmm?
And you're trapped inside.
Right. It's like I cannot even describe how hot and miserable it is here in Texas. On the coast of Texas, it's humid every day. It's just the worst. But anyway, I mean,
Is it really humid on the coast?
oh, so humid. I think it's humid throughout all of Texas, but right down by the coast, it's like you walk outside and it feels like you're breathing like water air. It's like if you put your face over a pot of boiling water, that's what it feels like every day. But anyway, good old Houston. So I will get to Matt's question now. It's a really interesting question, and I really like it. I'm interested to hear what your answer is. So he said, as working published writers, what is your opinion on authors rewriting their original work, like Grey or The Twilight Anniversary, from different perspectives of original characters? Is it a lazy cash-in or valid work?
That is interesting. I thought the question at first was going in a different direction, but which is another topic I guess that we could touch on because it's a little bit related. But wow, that is a really good question. So, I think when it comes to big selling stories like that, like Twilight, and I think you said was the other one's 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah, I had to Google it. So apparently 50 Shades of Grey was rewritten from the guy's point of view, which sounds terrifying to me. But
yeah. So I think when you have a property that's that huge, that's a book, a movie, and a lot of spin-offs and all these things, I think, yeah, it might be a way to make more money, certainly, because it's, that entity is just so enormous. But I think also, a lot of times it's for the fans. At least like who knows if I'll ever have that level of success, that would be great. But if I did have, a series that really took off and, fans wanted more, I think that's a way to kind of give them more without having to write another book. Because a lot of times, when you've reached the end of the story, like that's, you've kind of tied a bow on it, and that's the end. And unless you do an offshoot with another character or another, you kind of finalize the plot within that book or the series. Is 50 Shades of, I don't know if is that a...
It's a series.
Is it a series? Okay. So, that can be tricky for an author. I think from that perspective, I think it can be tricky to like give them more within the world, but you've kind of not ended the world, but you've kind of finalized everything within the story plot lines. And so yeah, that's tricky. I'm more familiar with Twilight, for instance, and I actually haven't read the story from Edward's perspective, so I don't really know. But I think it would be maybe fun to read just for fun, not as dedicated as I was to the books. Like I gotta find out what's gonna happen.
Okay, so there's not the Twilight Anniversary. It's not from Edward's perspective. It's a gender swapped Twilight. So they just made the vampire a girl and Bella a boy. I haven't read it either. But she did actually write, and this came out a long time ago, she did write, it's a book called Midnight Sun, and it was Twilight retold from Edward's perspective. But I don't think that got published because like someone had leaked it or something, so I think she just posted it online.
Okay.
I had read some of it online. I don't think I ever finished it. But yeah, so the Twilight Anniversary one was just a gender swap, and I didn't read it because I had read online that it was pretty tacky.
There's a few comments coming in. Do you want to give your answer and then I can get to those?
Yes. So my answer, he said, is it a lazy cash in or valid work? I'm gonna be the bad guy here and say that it's lazy cash in. Um, I can't stand it. I thought the Twilight thing was so stupid, and I adored Twilight, guys. I've met Stephanie Meyer. She was amazing. I met her for like 30 whole seconds. She was so cool. Um, I loved Twilight. I loved the movies, even though they were cheesy. But when I read that she was just rewriting Twilight with gender swap, I was like, who cares? Like, what a cash grab, you know?
Yeah.
And for 50 Shades of Grey, I don't know anything about that. So, like I said, I looked it up, and it was just a retelling from the guy's point of view. And it makes me really annoyed. And my biggest example of this is Harry Potter, because I was like the biggest Harry Potter fan you could possibly be for so many years. I started reading the books when I was 13. So almost 20 years of my life dedicated to this. I've got this like shrine of toys and Harry Potter crap over here. I have a Harry Potter tattoo. And when they started doing all this crap, I was just like, I'm done. The Fantastic Beasts, the play, whatever it was, like Cursed Child. Apparently, she didn't even write that. Like other people wrote it, and I was just like, what is this crap? It was like, it just felt like such a cash grab to me. It's like they won't let Harry Potter just be a great 7-book series. They just won't let it die. They won't let it just be, you know, what it is. And I feel like now they're just making it last forever and ever and ever, and I'm over it. And it 100% feels like a cash grab. And I've heard a lot of, I can see the comments are like, there's a ton of people posting, but I've heard a lot of people say that they've read this new stuff in the Harry Potter world, and it's not that good. And a lot of the diehard fans are saying they don't consider it canon, which I don't either. It's like, I want to leave my love of Harry Potter at the end of the 7th book, and I want to be done with it. So, but when I say that, yeah, it's a complete lazy cash in. I 100% will die on this hill. But in the same way, if I was in that position, I'd be like, hell yeah, like let the money keep raining down on me, you know, like who's gonna say no, thank you? I don't want these millions of dollars in profits off of my exploited work. So, you know, you can't really blame the authors, and I think a lot of it is like once you get mega famous, there's probably people telling you and making you do this kind of stuff. You're under contracts, you've got publishers, you know, publicists, all these people making you do it. So you might not really have a choice. You brought up a point that made me see things slightly differently. You said sometimes it's for the readers, and I will agree with that, because for self-publishing and smaller indie authors, a lot of times the readers will just love the series so much that they beg for more, and the authors will then write that. Either they'll write the same book again from a different point of view, or they'll add more, and that truly is for the fans, because these authors aren't getting millions of dollars in movie deals off of this. They are writing it to make their fans happy, and I think that's cool, and I think if you love a series, then you would love that too. But for the big names, it's like, I'm so over it. It's like, step aside and let some original work get made and get attention. So that's what I have to say about that. Do we even want to read the comments?
I have one more thing just before, because
Mm-hmm.
I want another thread. Another related thought is, when you do get super famous like that, you know, we're talking like Stephanie Meyer level. Is it E.L. James, is that the author of 50 Shades of Grey?
Something like that, yeah.
J.K. Rowling. Oh my gosh, she said like a brain fart. And even we saw it with her. Like she tried to publish under a pen name. And Stephanie Meyer has written several other books. I haven't read them, and so I think there's also a piece of it. And this is, you know, it doesn't necessarily pertain to us because we're not writing in the millions, but there is, I think, that, okay, I wrote this amazing book, this series, and it like took off, you know, beyond what you could ever imagine. And then like, how do I replicate that? Or how do I even dare to meet that, you know, with another successful story? And so I think there's like a little bit of, for lack of a better term, like a sophomore fear kind of thing. Like, you know, where does this go? Even though, you know, they've written multiple books, but it's within that world, within that series. When you want to come up with something new, I think there's like a little bit of a stage fright kind of thing, or, you know, maybe not even stage fright, but just you have a lot of people working with you, and, you know, they're looking at the plot and they're like, well, this isn't going to sell as well, and, you know, will that somehow interfere with, you know, what you've built as your author brand? And I think there's a lot more that goes in at that level, you know, from the larger marketing slash you know, business side of it. And then as an author, I think it can kind of be like, okay, like I wrote that, like how am I gonna, you know, even after Sugar and Pearl were done, there was just sort of like this little period of time where I'd written stuff and I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know where to go from here. And so I think that might be another piece of it. So then if you write within that world that's already established, people are gonna, you know, well, people will love to hate it, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, that is true. So I think I think the real outliers are the mega famous people like Twilight and Harry Potter. And I don't like those. But I was actually thinking as I was reading King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo a couple days ago, I was actually thinking, because she mentions Kaz Brekker in there a few times, and it's like, it's like, I want more, you know,
Yeah.
and I don't know, I haven't looked there. I don't know if there's any plans to write any more books in that series, but it's like, she wrote a series and the Grisha series, and then she wrote the Six of Crows series, duology, and then she wrote King of Scars. And it's because everybody absolutely loves these characters and these stories, and I love them so much. And she's one of those authors where she might be able to milk this for a long time, and I'm going to be right there loving every second of it. So, but again, she's big, but she's not Twilight big. So, it's kind of a toss up because I'm sure she gets told every single day, you have to write more. Like, I want more Kaz so bad, you know? So,
Yeah.
I guess it just depends on what the medium is, whether I'm going to think it's lazy or amazing. But with Leigh Bardugo, she can keep writing for as long as she wants, and I'm going to love every second of it.
And I think it's also the intention, like what's behind it, you know, like getting back
Right.
to Matt's question, you know, is it just lazy? Is it cash grab? Or is it like, you know, I care so much about my fans and I'm invested in this and I love this world and I can keep going if you want me to. Okay. Well, so
Right. Well, so Cassie commented that there's lines in the 50 Shades one with the same exact lines, so it was really a cash out.
oh, that's
So yeah, it sounds like, and then what I read about the Twilight gender swap was that she essentially took the whole manuscript and just changed the characters from men to women and just kind of lightly changed stuff. But every chapter, every scene, every plot was the same. That's what I've been told. I haven't read it. So to me, it's like, that's just lazy. You're just doing that for fun. Like, you're not giving us any new content. So, yeah, but again, it's like, how much money did she probably made enough money off of that one book that, like, more than I'll ever make in my whole career. So it's like, I can't blame her. It is what it is. If people want me to sell out for millions of dollars, I will be the first one to do it. So, you know.
there you have it. So let's see here. Some more comments. I'm just going. Okay. Oh, Tamar Jacob says my hair looks good. I feel like my hair looks like it's just terrible today. Moving on. Writer Tan says definitely an interesting concept to see from the other side, but I haven't seen it done that well. Yeah, like I think it's sometimes too. It feels rushed, especially in like we can translate this to movie franchises. Like sometimes you're just like, wait, another one came out? Like what? And
Spider-Man.
yeah, it kind of loses that richness because I feel like it's
Mm-hmm.
rushed and you don't go as deep into the character and the worlds. And so yeah, so let's see. Cassie or Giovanni author says what that was that actually published Midnight Sun? Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah, I'm 99% sure, and this was years ago, because I remember Stephanie blogged about it and said that someone had leaked it online, like it got pirated. So
Yeah.
she was just releasing it on her blog as a PDF download.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it ever did get published officially, but that's the last thing I remember about it.
Yeah.
And it was good because it was well, not brand new. It was Twilight told from Edward's point of view, so we got to see behind the scenes. It wasn't just a take each line and tweak it a little bit, you know? So,
how in the last book it switched points of view, right?
right.
But in all the other books it was just Bella's perspective. So yeah, like that to me that's acceptable. I actually probably like that. But writer Tams actually also has a really great comment. I feel like readers can definitely tell when it's a cash grab, when there isn't a passion behind a book. It's so easy to tell. I completely agree.
It's so very, very easy to tell. And hi, Tammy. I'm glad you could join us.
Oh, Tammy. That's my friend Tamara, also sometimes called Tammy. Okay. Yeah, just like those extra Star Wars movies. And then she says, good point. I can see how an author would be like, okay, what's next? And have future. Yeah. Yeah, there's so, you know, it's easy to just kind of look at it one-sided, but there's so many things that kind of factor in. yeah, how do you feel about the superhero books like Batman, etc.? So I think what Cassie is asking is when a movie franchise then writes books. So we saw that with like actually Lee Bardugo, Lee. I always want to call her Lay because that's
I
how
call her Lee.
it's Lee.
I
It's
call her Lee.
so
I don't know if
I've
that's
heard,
correct.
I've heard her say her name, um, but online. Um, uh, so yeah, she did Wonder Woman. I haven't read that, but I haven't really read any of those, so I don't know if I have a great opinion to offer. Um,
So, I just saw we got a really great question, and I want to get to that really fast. So I'm going to really say what I think Cassie's talking about is a couple years ago they announced basically all the DC, I think it was just DC superheroes, Catwoman and stuff. They had assigned a super famous young adult author to do a rewrite book of Catwoman, Wonder Woman, and all this stuff. And everyone was all excited and everything. And I was grumpy and annoyed, and I'm just being honest and uncut with you guys because it's like, do we need more licensed DC superhero books out there when there's so much original stuff? Because at the time, I had just had my City of Legends trilogy was published by Alloy Entertainment, and which is owned by Warner Brothers. And I was like, why aren't y'all hyping this up more? This is an original superhero story, you know? Because like they basically said there's a market for superheroes, so let's hire famous people to rewrite stuff that's already been written and push it to the young adult market instead of let's promote our original superheroes stories, you know? So I didn't like it, and I didn't read any of them. And like I said, Lee Bardugo's Grisha books, I will read them all day long, forever and ever until I die. But whichever one she wrote, one of the superhero ones, was it the Wonder Woman one? I can't remember. I haven't even bothered to pick it up because it's like I don't care. Like I don't care. So, and I think, and again, those are things where the big companies in charge are saying, here's how we can make a lot of money by taking a trusted IP and a trusted author and pushing out a book. And if you want to offer me money to write one, I would do it too. So, you know, it is what it is.
but do you think that, if, I mean, this is really just hypothetical, and you actually might have an answer because you're basically in this situation, but do you think when those kinds of books, like we'll just use the DC series as an example, do you think that if those become popular, do you think there's reader crossover? Like if they're like, oh, hey, look, there's another cool superhero book, and you know how Amazon does also bought, or they're shelved near each other in the bookstore. Or do you think the DC characters are just loyal to that series and they don't want anything else to do with, your original book?
I think it really depends on the series in question. I think there's always going to be crossover, but with those DC superhero books in particular, I think the readers would read all of those in a series by all the different authors. I'm not sure if they would branch out to read other people's books because when City of Legends was published, I was heavily involved with a lot of superhero fandoms and podcasts and stuff. And the people that are diehard superhero fans, that's like all they do for the most part. So I'm not sure if it helped their other books with crossover, read through.
Or even like the DC books in that series to your books.
Yeah, probably not at all because my also bots on Amazon don't have a single one of those. So I was really bummed because I was like, hey guys, there's a superhero book that I wrote. It's like you haven't heard of it in comic books for over the last 50 years, but it's brand new original content. Anyway,
they're loyal to that.
Yes, they're very loyal. Superhero fans are very loyal. Okay, so author Christina Herrera said, what are your thoughts on publishing with an independent press? I have a lot of thoughts. Do you want to go first?
You go with those thoughts, girl.
Okay, well, I've been published by an independent press. You really haven't. I think your publisher was a lot bigger. And she also said, also, what's the main difference between an independent press and a small press? How do small press publishers eventually get their books into bookstores? This is such a good question.
Answer that one first.
Yes, okay, so such a good question, and I feel like I have a lot of knowledge on it, but probably not all the knowledge, so take my answer with some salt. So there are, like, independent presses are typically what they call publishers that aren't the big five, HarperCollins, Penguin, Random House, whatever. And then there's small publishers, which are usually very small. They're usually run by a single person or a couple people, and sometimes they're ebook only or they're print on demand only, kind of Amazon only books. I think independent presses will get their books in bookstores a whole lot easier, because I think Sasha, my books, The Last Wish of Sasha Cade, was published by Kids Can Press. It's a large Canadian publisher, but I've actually heard them mentioned as an independent publisher before. And I was thinking, okay, it's because I guess they're not part of the big five, but they're huge and they're owned by Chorus Entertainment. It's a very huge company, but it's still considered independent press. So an independent press is, in my opinion, much more, what's the word I'm looking for? You can make more money and get more exposure publishing with an independent press. Your books will most likely be in bookstores compared to a small press. My book, The Breakup Support Group, was published by a small press, Month 9 Books. And there's also like Entangled Teen is considered a small press. And what was her original question? What are my thoughts on it? I really liked the process. I liked the way my book came out. I've enjoyed it. But my book was not in bookstores. It was only on Amazon, and it was print on demand. And my advance was much, much smaller than any other advance I've received, or than your average advance from a bigger publisher. So I think that small independent presses, well, I think independent presses are great and they have a place. I think some small presses, you really need to do your research on them, because there are so many, and so many of them pop up overnight seemingly. And especially if they only publish an ebook or print on demand, a lot of the small presses, I wholeheartedly feel like you'd be better off self-publishing yourself instead of going with them and signing over your rights. Because a lot of them are just, and I would really love anyone to comment or post on our Facebook page or something if you know of some small presses that have really good credibility, because most of them have pretty poor credibility. They don't pay advances, their books aren't bestsellers, a lot of their covers aren't good, so you really have to do the research. But then there are some, like I would say, like Month 9 Books is a great small publisher. They work hard, and some of their books come out in hardcover and are in bookstores. Some of them aren't. So I don't regret signing with them at all, but I think a lot of people that sign with really small publishers do regret it. I could probably talk about this forever, but I feel like I've been talking a lot. So, also another thing is both small publishers, usually you don't need an agent to submit. So that means it's easier to get in because you don't have an agent, which also means the quality isn't as good and their reach isn't as good. And I'm not saying that they're bad publishers, but your book's not going to be in Barnes & Noble. It's not going to get, Publishers Weekly reviews or anything, because they just don't have the budget. And that's why I say it's probably better to self-publish yourself than to sign with a really small press. But then there's independent presses, and they're great. Like if my publisher for Sasha is considered independent, then they're fantastic. That had a great advance. Like came out in hardback and paperback. I got trade reviews. They're in bookstores all over, literally all over the world. So, that's what I have to say about it. What do you have to say?
What I have to say is highlight everything that you said, but then I'll add. I think no matter whatever way you want to publish, obviously, except for self-publishing, I think it is really, really important to do your research and ask a lot of questions. The website is one thing, and that can give you some insight, but then, click their book covers and see how they're doing on Amazon or on Barnes & Noble or wherever, wherever they distribute to. And I think, I'll start with the small press. I think there are a lot of people that, see an opportunity to, I can throw this up on Amazon. I've done it once, I can do it again. And then it kind of goes from there. And again, like the credibility of those, maybe you are better off self-publishing. But, there are definitely some people who are like, you have to start somewhere, you have to start with book one and build from there. And they are wholeheartedly behind it, passionate, and, devoted to the success, of their company and of books. So I would definitely say, when it comes to small presses, do your research, and find out what their plan is for all of the editing stuff, all of the formatting, and like the physical creation of the book, whether it's just going to be ebook or if it's going to be in physical form. The way to do that is, I think, for a small press, is the same as a self-publisher would do it, which is going through Ingram, Spark, and those channels. And what's the marketing plan? What are all the next steps? What's going to happen in during launch week, and then a week after that, and a month, so on and so forth. How long do how long do they have your rights? What are all the, there's a lot of details that go into when you're going to sign a contract with someone. And you sign a contract no matter small press, independent press, whatever. And so, then that's for your protection. So with the small presses, yeah, I think you can definitely benefit, especially if you're working closely with an editor, and that collaborative experience I think is really valuable. But you do want to be really, really careful. And I think this is common knowledge, but I still see it coming up all the time. If someone tells you that you need to pay something, run away. You do not
Oh,
need
good point. Good point. Yes.
ever. To me, that's just sort of like, well, duh. But I see it come up in forums and chats and different places, and I'm just like,
I've seen people say, I'm so excited to announce my new book deal. My new publisher's so great. They only want me to pay $5,000. I'm like, what? Yeah, that's a really good point. You should never, ever, ever, ever pay anything ever for any reason ever. And I don't care how good their website looks. It is a scam, and you would be better off self-publishing. Do not pay a dime ever to a publisher.
that's different than if you sign with them. Part of that is assumed it's going to be an editing process. Now, before you get to that stage and you want another set of eyes that's not like a beta reader or a friend on your manuscript, yeah, you'll pay for editing, like you pay for that kind of thing. But we're talking about like once you have put your name on the line, there should be no money coming out of your pocket. It should be coming into your pocket. And so that was the small press thoughts. I think independent presses, like I think overall, maybe you're not going to get on the bestseller list necessarily, and it surprises me to hear that. I guess I hadn't thought of that, like KCP and like the big five, like those are, I don't know if
I think it's basically like you're either a big five or you're an independent press.
So okay.
So independent presses are great in that regard, that you don't have to be a big five.
Yeah. So I think you might hit the bestseller lists of whatever sort, but I think you're gonna really get a quality collaborative experience. You are gonna work with some amazing people, and they're gonna teach you so much about, like, just from like the basic, remember to dot your I, to just things you didn't even consider that you were gonna expand to in your writing tool, your tool. And then you get professional cover design and all that stuff. So I think
You get distribution.
Yeah,
Yeah,
distribution,
because
marketing.
they'll distribute it, and that's a big deal. Distribution and trade reviews, all that stuff's a big deal. And you want to check out these publishers, because I think some quality independent publishers actually will accept unagented submissions. I think Page Street Kids does, and they're great. I know Entangled Teen will accept them, and they're also great. But yeah, just really do your research and talk to other authors. And you had a really good point about independent publishers. Like, you have a closer connection with them, because for the longest time, I thought it would be so cool. And this was like years and years ago. I thought it would be so cool to sign a deal with Harper Teen, because Harper Teen is like everywhere, and their books seem amazing. And I've actually spoken with several Harper Teen authors. I've become friends with them over the years. And there's this whole tiered system in these big publishers where they've got their big books that they care a lot about and put a lot of effort into, and then they've got their little books that they just quietly release, and they get no promo, no attention whatsoever. And a lot of my friends are friends of these books, and they say they felt like they were just completely ignored. Their book just got pushed out because of contractual obligation, and they didn't get like a hands-on experience with it. And so when we realized that sometimes the big five isn't that great unless you're the big author at that big five. Whereas with mine, I got to talk on the phone with my editors. I got to email. I'm in contact with the whole publishing team. Like, you really get this great experience with your book, and your book's in good hands because they care about it, because they're not publishing a bazillion books a year. So that's another benefit to an independent press. I loved my publisher.
Absolutely.
For Sasha.
And on another thing is, some writers tend to be, quiet, reserved. But don't be afraid to ask questions. Like, this is your career, this is your baby, this is something that you've created. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And if you're not, if you're feeling hesitant, like you don't understand something, especially, when you start to get into like the, the complicated contractual stuff, you don't understand something, like, there's no shame in being like, hey, this is my first rodeo. I don't know, what I'm doing. Can you please explain this to me in terms that I'll understand? Or, bring it to a lawyer who deals with that kind of thing and have them break it down for you. But don't be afraid to ask questions, because you'll thank yourself later. You really will.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I'm giving you permission, and I'm encouraging you when you're in that position. If you don't get something, just be like, hey, I'm new here. Can you help me out? And, at some point they all were too. And that's something I always like to, remind myself, like that, that people tell you, like, if you have to give a speech, like picture everyone in the room naked and you'll feel relaxed. Well, I don't know if that works or not, but I always tell myself, if I'm in a situation where I'm unfamiliar and it's new to me, like, they were at one point too. They weren't born, knowing all about, foreign rights. So, ask your questions and get the information, take notes, all of that stuff.
That's a really great point.
So, C. Giovanni, author, said Harlequin, Kensington, and I think, yeah, those are also.
Yeah, there's a lot of really small imprints that will accept unagented submissions, but just do your research, because a lot of those, especially if they don't pay advances, you'd be better off self-publishing. And I was going to say, Google is your friend. Google. There's the Writers Beware website. There's the Absolute Right forums. Find what people are saying about these books. And also, a word of warning, if you submit to a small publisher, don't get so excited when you get an offer that you just sign immediately without thinking it through, because I have heard countless times that some deals are worse than no deal at all. So do your research and, just be smart about it, because I hate seeing people get taken advantage of by these small presses that are kind of predatory. So we have another question.
Oh, yeah.
By author Christina Herrera. She said, what are your thoughts and experiences on revise and resubmits?
Funny that, because this morning I was listening to a podcast, and it was a writing podcast, and the guest mentioned an agency that I had recently submitted to, and they asked for the full, and then the agent came back with a few comments, and I was like, I read the rejection, and I kind of ended there, but I was like, I think actually she wrote a little note, like if I fixed it up and made changes, like she might want me to resend it to her, and I glazed over that. So anyway, it's funny, that's kind of pertinent to me right now, because I've just been thinking about it. So what are your thoughts and experiences on revise and resubs? I think if the agent says, hey, this is a great book, but I have a few problems here and there, it could be worth your while. If you have a few replies and they're along the same line, yeah, go for it. I don't think I've done it a couple times to no avail, but and that's the thing you need to remember. Sometimes it just doesn't have that thing that's going to click with the agent, even though they're mildly interested, and then you go and put all that effort into it and still a no. Keep that in mind. I think if you have the time and energy to do it, it will only, chances are only make your document, your manuscript stronger. Just make sure you save the original in another document, just so you still have that.
Yes. I think I've actually never had to do a revise and resubmit, but I've heard a lot of agents talk about it, and I've heard some agents say that they do it just to see how well you are to work with, because some authors are apparently a nightmare to work with. And so ahead of time, it's like this little trial run to see if you can handle, changes and edits and whatnot before they sign you. So, but then sometimes it's just something's not clicking. And I think what you should do, if you've sent out a bunch of queries and you've had a bunch of requests, but no offers, that means something's good. Your query's good, your hook is good, your plot is good. But then if an agent comes along and requests and says, I want you to revise this, then I would maybe, take their advice. If you have just one agent out of a million that wants a change and no other agents do, then I would maybe kind of be like, meh. But also, you said something like if all the feedback is consistently pointing out something, then you need to handle that no matter how stubborn you are. Because with City of Legends, I remember a few of my early readers had said, it gets kind of slow in the middle and it kind of bogs down. And I read it and I was like, no, it doesn't. The middle's like my favorite part. I loved the middle. I was like, you don't know what you're talking about. And then I sent out some queries and I had some agents say, unfortunately, it was too slow in the middle. And I was like, they don't know what they're talking about. And I just kept ignoring it. You know, all the reviews, all the feedback said it was too slow in the middle. And then I got my book deal for it. And I was like, see, everybody was totally wrong. A publisher wants this book, and like one of the first edits, my editor was like, okay, we got to fix up this slow middle. And I was like, okay, I should have listened. I should have listened. So if you're getting consistent feedback saying something is wrong, and then an agent offers you a revise and resubmit with that thing that's wrong, absolutely do it. Absolutely, because you're way more likely to get it represented and get it, you know, published. But if it's just one random agent and you don't really like it, maybe get some more feedback and maybe decide.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also one thing I've heard many agents say is don't rush through the revisions. Like, don't spend the next 48 hours rewriting your book and then send it off quickly, because that's showing right there that you don't have what it takes, because like writing and publishing takes forever and they want you to spend quality time. If it's just a short thing, maybe a couple weeks, but if it takes you a month or two, don't stress. Like, the agent's not here looking, saying, oh, they haven't sent it back to me fast enough, forget them. Like, they're so busy, they don't care. And then when they get it, and if it's been a while and you've put in the work and the heart and effort and made it good, you're way more likely to get an offer of representation then. So don't rush through it either.
It's really interesting your point about you know, your process with City Legends, because I think as authors, a lot of us, we become really attached to that, you know, maybe it's not the exact first draft, but the one that we're ready to shop around. And we feel like, okay, it's good, you know, like I got it to this point, it's ready, like here we go. And I think one of my greatest lessons, aside from patience in publishing, has been humility. And that is just to say, like, you know, yeah, again, if it's just one person that's just like, meh, forget it. But if a series of people are like, this needs a little work, I think it's really worth listening to. And, you know, if you do get that kind of feedback, ask a trusted friend, maybe also a writer or someone, you know, like, hey, what do you think of this? Like, do you agree? Do you not agree? And they might be like, oh, you know, actually, I was thinking about that. And for some reason, they didn't want to tell you or whatever. So really, really good point. And then the other thing I just want to say real quick, just in case anyone's listening to this that wasn't clear, she's asking about when an agent, you submit to an agent a manuscript and they're, you know, mildly interested, but they're like, hey, if you make these changes, you're welcome to resubmit me. That is different than if you send out a manuscript, the agent says no, flat out no, sorry, and then you do some changes and then resubmit that book to them. That's different, and that's not generally speaking. I mean, if you really like overhaul the whole book, change the name, all this stuff, like it's
right. You're not, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, every agent has different policies on this, but for the most part, you're not supposed to resubmit without being asked to. Some agents say if it's been a year and you've completely, wholly changed the whole thing, then go for it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, but I also want to point out that City of Legends thing. That was the first and only time I was resistant to feedback, like, because I genuinely loved the middle. It's still my favorite part, even with all the action and everything. That's my favorite. But like, that was the first time, and then now it's like, I'm like, give it to me. You know, I send out my manuscript to either you or other beta readers or my agent or my editor, and I'm like, okay, tell me everything that sucks, because I am ready to make this right. You know, it's like, I'm so eager to shred this manuscript because I trust what these people are telling me, because it really is a team effort. And especially if it's an agent or an editor, do you want your book published or not? Because if you're going to stomp your feet and say, no, I'm not changing it, it's never going to get published. So yeah, that was my one and only time I was like, no, this is stupid, you're wrong. And then I had to change it anyway. So okay,
can I add one more? I just
yes.
When I was working on Pearl, which was my second book with my publisher with Skyscape, my editor came back and she's like, okay, we have a lot of changes to make. And at first I was just like looking at them, I'm like, oh my gosh. But then I was like, okay, we're performing surgery, like we're doing this, I'm doing this, like all in. And so it's a mindset shift, I think, especially when you've worked so hard on something, to have someone be like, well, actually we're going to rewrite the whole section here. And you know, coming back to the idea of humility, you know, just remember, like, it's not about ego, it's about creating the best product you can for readers and selling it. So there you go.
Yeah.
Next question.
So Cassie asked, she said, how long does it take your agent to give you feedback on a manuscript?
That depends on the agent.
Is there an answer?
Yeah, I don't know if there's an answer, but I would say it depends on how many clients your agent has. You know, if they have a lot of established clients and, you know, they're going to be higher up in the queue than you are. And so with my agent, she was pretty quick, actually, even though she did have a bunch of other clients. I think also it can also be a matter of circumstance. Like they had to take a plane ride somewhere, and so they got some work done while they were traveling or whatever. And so I would say, you know, if you haven't heard in a month or so, definitely touch base. And, you know, maybe a little addendum to that email is like, hey, you know, we didn't talk about this before, like your communication style, like, you know, when can I expect to hear from you? I'm over here like sitting on my hands, like basically spinning out of my chair, dying to know what you think. But, you know, you don't have to say that. But, you know, we're all
No, yeah, don't say that.
It's a professional relationship, but it's also like they know you're human and you're an author and you're probably freaking out getting to hear stuff. So, you know, I think approaching that like asking that question there's nothing wrong with it, but just ask the question.
Yeah, so my agent takes anywhere from a couple days to a month or two to give me feedback. It really just depends on what we're doing and what's going on. And one thing I really love about my agent is that she usually gets back to me right away with a timeline. Like, I'll send her something and she's like, okay, great, got it. I'll get back to you in a week. Or I probably can't touch this for 3 weeks. Or like she gives me some kind of timeline because agents are so busy and they travel a lot and they're just busy. And it's like when, like right after Sasha had sold, I didn't bother her for a long time because like I'm not going to start sending her more manuscripts when I'm working on something now. But then it's like when it was time to go on submission with another book, you know, then we were in quick communication and she's getting back to me quickly and everything. And I just sent her the first 3 chapters and synopsis of this new project I'm working on. And I was like, take your time, there's no rush. And she was like, okay, I'm gonna put it at the bottom of the stack because she's extremely busy. So one thing that I found, like, or one thing you need to do when finding an agent is research their communication style and how long it takes them to do that kind of thing. I'm actually really proud of myself because I've had 3 authors reach out to me saying that my agent had offered them representation and they were basically interviewing me like, how is she as an agent? And I talked her up so much that they all agreed to sign with her. So I'm like, I'm very proud of myself. So anyway, but I've had a lot of people will ask this question, like, how long does your agent take to get back to you? And that's an important question. And the thing I love about my agent, and I think a good agent will do this, is she'll get back to you instantly and tell you how long it's going to take.
Yeah.
So that way you at least know that she got it. It didn't disappear in her inbox. And then you know how busy she is because agents are very, very, very busy. And if it's not your time, because like I have so many clients and it's like sometimes like it's your time to go on submission or to get another book deal or to get something done. And then they spend more time on you. Well, once you have that book deal or once you're doing whatever, you're busy, it's not your time. And other clients need to take priority. So it really just depends. And I've found that the longer I'm in this industry, the more patient I am. Like how on April 9th, I was supposed to have really good news and I'm still not able to announce it. And it's April, 23rd? So 24th? It's the 24th, you guys. Yeah. So it's like, you know, whatever. And I had waited 5 months to think that I could announce on April 9th, and I still can't. So it's like, after a while, I'm just so laid back. I don't really care. And even when I have a book on submission, I'm not really thinking about it after a while because you just kind of get, you know, used to the fact that it's going to take so long. And if I happen to get an email, I'm like, oh, cool, that's fine. I wasn't expecting that. So it's all in your mindset.
It really is, really is. Well, I think we're coming up to the hour. It seems like we had a lot of really great questions and comments and thoughts today.
We did.
All for chiming in.
We don't even need a topic ahead of time. We can just jump on here and find stuff to talk about.
I think we could just probably, like, if Instagram didn't cut us off at the hour, I think we would just sit on here for all day and not work.
I was gonna say, we should just do like a video chat while we're working every day and just talk. But anyway, well, thank you guys for joining us.
Yes.
If you'd like to continue the conversation, please join our private Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/writersuncut group. You can also catch replays on older episodes on YouTube. Simply search for Writers Uncut. If you have questions for future episodes, send us a message on social media. Please share us with your friends and use the hashtag Writers Uncut, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.